Quitlam. Further, we'd like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many territorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. Call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Someone to move the recommendation? Moved. Second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Public input. Matters raised here are for Council's consideration and should be constructively focused on agenda items only. Please limit comments to 2 minutes and save questions for question period later. Any public input? Please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So Nancy Maloney, 1724 East Road, where we have lived for 30 years. So I would like to refer Mayor and Council.
Please, the microphone, don't, yeah, if you touch it, it's, yeah.
Don't touch.
Don't touch.
No
That's
touching.
Good. Thanks.
No touching. So I'd like to refer Mayor and Council and also Ms. Elric to page 137 of the agenda package.
Go ahead.
Found it? Okay. Item E5.2. Found it?
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Of the Metro Vancouver Board in Brief report. Briefly, this item notes that a motion was incorrectly noted as carried in the February 28, 2025 minutes. An identical problem to what happened here at Anmore's recent council meeting. However, rather than Metro's acceptance of the erroneous minutes as a result of their incorrect approval, the February 28th approval was rescinded. The error was corrected in revised minutes and attached to the April 11, 2025 dated report. The action taken, and I quote from the Metro report, quote, "The board rescinded the adoption of minutes and adopted the revised minutes of February 28, 2025. Ms. Ulrich previously suggested that such action was not possible in Anmore. As Metro Vice Chair, I assume that our mayor supported the motion and will similarly initiate steps to correct Anmore's equivalent approval of erroneous minutes, which misrepresented Councillor Crier's vote against supporting an Anmore South survey, as was one component of the communication public feedback strategy. So I want to thank you in advance for this correction.
Thank you.
And I had a couple of other quick things. Okay. Regarding page 89 of the agenda package, within the Anmore procedure bylaw, I remain concerned about the lack of the ability of council-appointed committee members and also non-member residents to support consideration of topics not provided by the manager of corporate services, which I assume is at the direction of council. I feel this represents a major change from Anmore's historical past practice, and to me seems highly undemocratic. And very, very lastly, I've done some research on the required accessibility plan. So, well, I'll maybe save this for question period related to the accessibility plan. Okay, so thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on then. We have some delegation. Oh.
I'm an old guy, don't move fast, and I need my glasses to read. I won't touch that either. My name is Matthew Campbell. I'm here with my wife, Gina. We're 8-year residents of Anmore, live at 2420 Leggett Drive. I'm here to speak on what you will find on page 102 of tonight's agenda, supporting documents. So I'd like to express my support for the recommendations outlined in the May 16th, 2025 report titled Infill Policy RLU 16 Review, submitted by the Manager of Development Services. The proposed amendments to the official community plan infill policy are both timely and necessary, reflecting a more thoughtful and flexible approach to managing growth within the village of Anmore. Our current policy, while well-intentioned in its desire to protect the community's semi-rural character, applies a rigid set of criteria that inadvertently disqualify many parcels that could otherwise support low-impact, context-sensitive infill development. As noted in the report, the all-or-nothing requirement for meeting all 7 criteria, particularly regarding average slope, lot frontage, and minimum parcel size, has proven to be overly restrictive. This has prevented the village from realizing opportunities for smart growth that align with our planning objectives, infrastructure capacity, and environmental stewardship. Specifically, shifting the average slope requirement to an evaluation of actual buildable area offers a more practical, environmentally responsible approach. It allows us to ensure development occurs only in flatter, low-impact zones of a parcel while preserving steeper, more sensitive areas. Similarly, offering limited flexibility on the 50-meter frontage requirement, particularly for parcels with 45 to 49 meters, recognizes and realizes the realities of our existing lot configurations without compromising access or safety. Finally, expanding eligibility to include smaller lots could help revitalize older parcels and support gentle densification in a way that respects our village's unique character.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other? Okay, we'll move on. We've got 2 delegations tonight. We have Ms. Ekaterina Perkins from Friendly Forest Preschool. Welcome.
Hello, testing. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor McEwen, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Ekaterina Perkins. I'm the co-president of Friendly Forest this year. And I've been on the board 3 years, so this is my 3rd year. Next to me, we have Lindsay Giroux, who is one of Friendly Forest Preschool's longstanding teachers. She's been there since 2000, so this is her 25th year. And we're here requesting to be recognized as an official community volunteer group. In case you might not be familiar with who we are, we wanted to provide a bit of support for that request. So Friendly Forest is a parent cooperative preschool. We're also a registered charity. We've been a preschool since 1985, but the preschool sort of ethos itself was started a little bit earlier, likely in the 1970s, with mom and tot groups. Over the years, we've received funding from Belcara to build our playground, and subsequently from the Ministry of Education, which helped provide a grant of $150,000 for our building. We are a 7-member parent volunteer board that is supported by the larger parent cooperative. So every family that goes to Friendly Forest has a volunteer role, whether you're on the board, whether you're on things like maintenance, whether you're in the classroom supporting the teachers and ensuring the best activities are there for the children. Over the years, many of the volunteers at Friendly Forest have come from Anmore. And we're also, of course, supported by 3 teachers, ECE certified teachers, as well as 2 program assistants. So Friendly Forest, on an average year, 70 to 80 children cycle through the preschool. We have 2 classes for 4-year-olds and 2 classes, morning and afternoon classes for 3-year-olds. So we really focus on providing programming for preschool-aged children. Our typical budget in a given year is around $240,000. We receive the bulk of that through parent fees in attending Friendly Forest, as well as BC wage enhancement, support from Kinsight, as well as childcare support through the Childcare Fee Reduction Initiative. About 95% of our expenses every year go to supporting teacher salaries, as well as things like insurance, utilities, and our license to occupy. And we, every year in setting our budget and in making sure things are going okay, as a board, we make sure every dollar counts. We want to make sure that all of our funding goes towards maximizing programming for the children. I would say since COVID, we've had a dip in numbers, and we continue to see that dip in numbers. And so over the last couple of years, we've been operating at a deficit. going into our savings as a preschool. And now I'll pass it on to Lindsay.
Just a couple of small things here. So thank you again for listening with us tonight. I have been one of the educators at Friendly Forest Preschool for the last 25 years, and for the last 25 years we have been a member of the community here in Anmore. We have worked always very well with Anmore Elementary, and over the course of a number of years we did a lot of fundraising, and with the children we did some initiatives with them where we would make and sell jam, and we would bring donations up to the village of Anmore for the Sasamat Volunteer Fire Department. So we supported their initiative in their breathing apparatus funds and such. So as Ekaterina mentioned, we are a registered nonprofit and a registered charity, and so given those, we would kindly ask that we are recognized as a volunteer nonprofit organization within the village council.
Good. Well, thank you. I know that we are looking at some of these things. There's some other groups that are interested as well, so we're going to be doing a review, so thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we have the First Anmore Scouts presenting regarding a trip to Costa Rica. Ms. Mitten. We are having some technical difficulties. Okay.
Okay. Do you want us to wait, or? It's just a slideshow that doesn't have any sound with the slideshow. Just background. Yeah. Okay.
Do you,
We can go without.
yeah, and then maybe, Julie, and then maybe what we'll do is we'll come back home. I don't know. Lena's not here tonight, who is, yeah. So if you go through, and then we'll rebook you with the pictures. I'd love to see the pictures. So
Okay. Yeah, if it happens to work while we're going, then great.
Okay.
Do I hit a button, or?
thanks.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
It's
All right.
very touchy.
All right, so good evening. My name is Julie Wynn. I am the group commissioner with First Anmore Scouts. Thank you to the Village of Anmore for allowing us to come and present this evening. So some of our scouts have recently come back from a volunteer trip to Costa Rica. This trip was made possible with the support of the Village of Anmore as well as the community around us. So during this trip, we spent a weekend with an indigenous community of Baruka, and we spent the weekend with the Scouts group there, where we got to learn some similarities and differences that we share. We spent a week volunteering at a nature reserve, where we learned a ton of things about the animals and the nature, how things that we do here in Canada have such a great impact down in Costa Rica. We spent a weekend at Corcovado National Park, which is known to be the most biologically diverse place in the world. And then, of course, we got to enjoy some typical tourist activities like waterfall rappelling, chocolate tours, beaches, swimming, that sort of thing. So I would like to introduce to the council and the community the youth that attended the Costa Rica trip, along with myself and my co-scouter, Samomo. So we had Hui, Stephen, Devin, Rika, Yumi, and Hunter.
Oh, looks like we've got something.
Oh, yeah.
Julie, can I ask you to move the mic so it's more pointed towards you? I know it'll crackle a little bit, but yeah.
Like
Thank-
that?
That's better, thank
Okay,
you.
great. All right, well, with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to
Yeah,
Rika here.
Perfect.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Rika. Thank you for having me to share my experience. Our trip to Costa Rica was truly an amazing experience for all of us. It was an opportunity to grow in independence and confidence as a volunteer, a scout, and an individual. I believe all of us found something new during our time there, like how different another country can be, how we can help the world, and how much we achieved. I enjoyed every moment of the trip, from the airport all the way through. Even now, I still believe that the world might be a lot bigger than I thought. I was happy to see a side of myself I hadn't noticed before. I found out that I'm more adventurous than I thought. Throughout the volunteer experience, we learned a lot, from plants and animals to global issues. And I realized how much humans are changing the planet. I already knew that I loved environment and volunteering, but Costa Rica showed me that what I care can guide to what I do. Now I have a better understanding of myself. I've started to figure out what I want to achieve and how I can do that. For example, I want to go back to the reserve for another volunteer trip. So I started to save money and learn more Spanish. This trip was a meaningful opportunity, and I'm grateful to my peers, scouters, and everyone who supported us. It wasn't just a trip for learning and adventure. It was the beginning of self-discovery and a new way of seeing the world. Thank you.
In the indigenous group of Baruka, masks are a really big part of their culture. They carve them out of balsa wood and then they get painted. As scouts, we truly appreciate the village and community's contribution to help us get to Costa Rica, and to help us get to Costa Rica and experience these amazing once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. So without further ado, me and the rest of the scouts would like to present the village with a mask that we picked up in Baruka, and as well as a badge that we all as scouts put together.
Do we want to, Julie, do you want to get a picture of everybody together? Or? Oh. Perfect. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I think, is it all right to get a picture with, yeah. Okay. Do you want to hold the mask? Yeah. Just over here? Yeah. I don't want it to fall over. So. Okay, we'll move on to adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on May 6, 2025. Could I get someone to approve those minutes? Second? Any discussion? See none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried unanimously. Is there any business arising from those minutes? No, see none. We have a consent agenda. Anybody want to move? There's only one item on the consent agenda. Could I get someone to move the consent agenda? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We're now on to legislative reports. Anmore closure and removal of highway dedication, Marie Amendment Bylaw number 716, 2025. Report dated May 16th from our planner is attached. Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. So I'll be presenting the Anmore closure and removal of highway dedication, Marie Amendment Bylaw number 716, 2025. So this amendment updates bylaw number 664, 2022, which was originally adopted in 2022 to close a portion of Marie Lane running through the village lands. So the current bylaw lacks the proper language to effectively close the road as a highway, which is a requirement of the community charter prior to canceling and removing the highway dedication of Marie Lane. To bring the bylaw into compliance, staff are proposing to clarify some of the language and update the required language to officially close portions of Montgomery Lane and remove highway dedication in accordance with the legislative requirements. So if council supports the recommendation, staff will publish a public notice of council's consideration to close portions of the road and remove its highway dedication in accordance with the community charter, as well as notify utility operators which may be affected by the road closure. All feedback received by public and utility operators will be brought back to council before adoption of the amendment bylaw. So the motion on the table is that first, second, and third reading be given to Anmore closure and removal of highway dedication, Montgomery Amendment Bylaw, number 716, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I get someone to move the moved and seconded? Open up for discussion. Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, just one comment on the map, which has the road outlined in a heavy black line. It shows it being emptying out onto Sunnyside beside Ravenswood. I'm assuming that that's just the road right-of-way that's actually in the parking lot or something like that. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
So in essence, this is just simply taking the old Montgomery Road that went sort of right through here out to here now that we've changed. Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Richardson.
Just for curiosity, the new road is built and it's not there. So what happens after, like, it seems to me we should already have a road there and have two roads and remove one, but we're removing one and adding another at some future date?
Yeah, please, Mr. Boyd.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. The road is currently within public domain because it's on our property, it's in the village property. So that's how we can currently have this right of way. We have a utility corridor on the north side as well, so that's how hydro are operating as well. This is just a cleaner way of getting everything right to where it needs to be because we actually haven't closed the road right away where currently we have some public infrastructure is in the plaza and what have you. So it's a clean way of tidying all of this up and getting it to where it needs to be.
Okay, so to be clear, we will never have a road right of way. Like Montgomery Lane will not be a road right of way going through the north ever.
So we're implementing a road right away on the north. So where the road is currently,
Yeah.
there will now be an official road right of way
Okay.
there.
It's not on the map. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good, good. Any other questions, comments? See none? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We have 9B, Anmore Procedure Bylaw Clarification Report dated May 16th from 2020 from our Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So this report is before council this evening as there had been some recent questions and clarifications sought regarding the procedure bylaw. So essentially, this report is just providing the recent history of the changes to the procedure bylaw. In October of last year, a committee of the whole meeting was held whereby council unanimously voted to move forward with several changes and updates which resulted in a new procedure bylaw. Then in December, it was brought forward for 3 readings, which was passed unanimously by council. When it was brought forward for adoption in January 21st, there was one additional change made, an amendment regarding the question period, and then at that time, staff went away, made that amendment, provided the appropriate notice, and the bylaw was adopted on February 4th. So the recommendation this evening is just that the report dated May 16th from the CAO entitled Anmore Procedure Bylaw Clarification be received for information, and staff is happy to answer questions or take further direction if council wishes.
Could I get someone to move receipt? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I was confused by this when it was raised a couple weeks ago, because I remember clause 64 being as it is in attachment 1, which is petitions must include name, address, complete, et cetera, and I was surprised when the new 64 was quoted, and I apologize because I completely missed that when it came through. And my worry now is 64 conflicts with the first one on public question period 14 or whatever it is. The normal public question period, and they don't reference each other. So, like, it seems to me the normal question period should reference 64, or 64 should say, you know, that section with these constraints, but they don't. So to me, they're contrary, and my worry is that 64 now, when you read it carefully, stops all input on anything, because pretty much anything a council does will either go to bylaw or is prohibited from, will go to public hearing or is prohibited from going to public hearing. So, for example, the hillside, if this is enforced as written, my understanding is there will never be another question allowed to council on the hillside, because the hillside is allowed in the OCP and the province forbids any public hearing on something that's already in the OCP for rezoning. Is that understanding that correctly? So it takes away all this ability to input from the public, and I don't think this is the intent of Bill 44 and the province on curtailing this type of discussion. I know there's a lot there, but like, I'm kind of against 64 the way it currently is.
Ms. Elrick.
So through the chair, just for clarity, the reason that that clause is not included in the original report that went to Committee of the Whole in October of 2014, because the staff recommendation at the time was actually to remove public input and question period. So that's why that wasn't included. The subsequent bylaw that was prepared for council as a result of that meeting did include public hearing, but set out some criteria, and that was before council at least three more times. That was before council, and there was one amendment made, so the council was aware of that amendment. It was discussed in the meeting, and if council wishes to provide any further direction at this time, staff is happy to take that.
Councillor Richardson.
Could you just clarify, was I accurate on the hillside? Like, there will never be allowed acknowledgement by a public comment or public question or delegation on the hillside, because it is explicitly forbid by the province to have public hearings on rezonings that are included in the OCP.
I can't answer that question at this time.
We'd have to get a legal opinion on that. There is a lot of gray area with some of the municipalities. So. Okay. Any other further comments? See none? Call the question for receipt. All those in favor? Moved. Second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay. We're now going to go on to facility rentals for meetings, policy number 78 update. Report dated May 16th, 2025 from the Events Administrative Assistant is attached. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So as the village has made the facility available for rentals, we've gone through a few iterations of what types of rentals and groups that were allowed for rental activity, and committed to council that we would report back periodically on that. So on page 101 of the agenda package is just an update of the facility rentals since the last time we updated the policy. As you can see, there's been mostly community groups, volunteer groups coming into the building. We have had a few rentals, such as the election, and there was a couple of other private rentals. Some of the private users that inquired were mostly concerned about the parking, and we haven't had too many other inquiries outside of that. What we have found is that for the lower risk meetings and events that we are allowing currently, and those are no alcohol events, that there are other rentals that are asking for 2 million liability as opposed to 3 million liability. And apparently there's quite a difference in cost between the 2 and 3 million. So that is a recommendation from staff that for these low risk events, we lower the threshold for the insurance requirements to 2 million. The other thing that we found as the boardroom is quite utilized by staff and council during the day. So it's been very difficult if we have meetings in there. We've actually had to move meetings out into this room that were booked in the other room so that we can use the AV and whatnot. So staff would recommend that the boardroom only be available for rentals during business hours. So the recommendation this evening would be that facility rentals for meetings policy be amended to include insurance requirements in the amount of 2 million liability rather than 3 million for the currently approved activities within the policy, and that rental restrictions for the boardroom be permitted during business hours, again, aligned with the policy.
Can I get someone to move that? Moved and seconded, and I'll open up for questions, comments. Councillor Weber.
A couple of comments. I see the policy says the rental can't go past 9 p.m. That would eliminate a lot of groups that would want to use this, so I'm against that. Alcohol, there's been a lot of events where alcohol's been allowed, so why is that changed? Once again, I think there's a lot of groups that would probably want that option to make full use of this hall. And maybe I'll just go through all of them. And if the fees are an issue, I think we just charge the appropriate fees to cover the event. Any comments?
Sure, through the chair, this policy is currently in place where there is no alcohol permitted. The only exception to that has been one Scouts event, which came as a council delegation and asked for permission. And then the village hosted our own volunteer appreciation event, which we obtained a liquor license for and is essentially our event, and we've done that in the past. In terms of the hours were set as such because they align with the noise control bylaw. There were concerns raised about that. And additionally, because we aren't allowing alcohol events, typically that time has been suitable for most. Should alcohol events be permitted, staff would recommend a separate policy to include those type of events, and staff would also come back with resourcing needs for that, as we currently don't have staff. The events now, we have staff on call, so if we have a staff member available on call, then we book the event. Alcohol events, typically you would have a staff member present, so that would require different resources than we currently have.
Right, and I understand all that. I think it's worth the discussion, though. I mean, I built this hall for the community, and people in the community have different needs and different desires of what they want to do with it. So I want to be as accommodating as possible. I want to see this place used. Taxpayers spent a lot of money on it, and we had that community market. It was just amazing. I've been to some of the bingo and trivia nights. They're amazing. I want to encourage that sort of thing. So I think we maybe need to work on that policy a bit. That's all I have to say.
Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I think that many adult events include alcohol, and I understand what you're saying about raising that as a secondary policy or a standalone policy. That does make sense to me. I think in terms of licensing control and even the cost, an alcohol event typically has to factor in those kinds of expenses regardless of where they're renting. So I think if we create a new policy for alcohol, that's desirable. I think, I read this much like Councillor Weverink, that it was just excluded. So I was going to recommend altering this policy, but I think it would be much cleaner. What you have suggested would be much cleaner and simpler. I'd like to see alcohol events. I'm the same as Councillor Weverink. I want to make sure we create as much access as possible to the building. So.
Good, thank you. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you, and I agree with Councillor Weverink and Councillor Trowbridge. I think it's time that we start looking at adding that policy for alcohol. The holidays will be here soon, so perhaps it's something we should dig into a little bit further. I know that parking is still going to be a bit of an issue, but there are things to do to mitigate that by whoever's renting the hall. A lot of the expenses that we're speaking of are flow through, so the applicant would be covering those. So it's no extra cost to the village, but just rental income, and also serving the purpose that we built the building for. So I would definitely support getting a little bit more information. I don't know how that looks, but I think it's time to start digging in.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with pretty much everybody here. We built this, and I think it's kind of underutilized. So I think we have to find a way to get more involvement from the community to use it. Maybe it's external to the community, but I think we have to use it more. And I agree, another policy or something will allow that. I'm in full support.
Good. Yeah, I'm in agreement with everything that's said. You know, there's alcohol events that I've attended, wakes, you know, usually sometimes we'll have wine and beer, weddings. Again, this was sort of promised as part of the hub when this was planned and this building was laid out. I also think that this could generate some revenue to help pay for those, for a caretaker or somebody to be here on site, and I think it'll be a bit of a flow through for those that are booking it. So I'm just wondering, we have an existing policy here, number 78. I'm just wondering if we could deal with this and then maybe put a motion on the table that staff come back with a report about adding alcohol to the facility in a report at a future date in the next few months type thing in that, to be able to get something in place in the near future.
Certainly. Did you want to vote on the motion and then
Sure.
make another?
Yeah, sure. So the existing motion as it stands for the changing of liability insurance and also the rental restrictions on the boardroom, it's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And then if you could give me some verbiage
And
in
then
regards.
that staff report back to council on an additional rental facility policy that would allow for alcohol events.
Yeah, and look at different operating hours as well, I think, which was brought up in that.
Certainly.
Yeah. Moved, seconded. Any discussion on that? Councillor Richardson.
I only have one point. Staff is quite busy these days. Is this a high priority or a low priority? And we should give some consideration to staff on their workload right at this time.
I'll discuss it with Ms. Elric. Yeah, over the summer. I think the other, go ahead, Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I just want to agree with Councillor Richardson, and I think if you're going to discuss it, we should let I'm not telling you how to be a mayor, we should let Ms. Elric have quite a bit of weight in terms of the decision how to fit it into her schedule. So I don't want to pressurize staff by trying to do something good.
I think the other thing as well that we need to incorporate in the policy, because parking is not readily available at this point in time, but there's certainly going to have to be some sort of parking system in place regarding a collaboration with the school for some events until we actually get until the redesign happens, which I think we're receiving input right now regarding Spirit Park, and hopefully in the coming months that may get started as well to be able to enhance the parking here around the hub. So with that being said, we've moved in second. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Elric. Okay, we're now on to 11B, Infill Policy RLU 16 review. Report dated May 16th, 2025. Our Manager of Development Services attached. I will be recusing myself due to as I have throughout this whole process. So I believe the acting mayor is Councillor Trowbridge.
Ms. Elrick, I'll also recuse myself. We are looking at doing infill as well. Thanks.
I don't need the gavel. If you behave, I don't need the gavel. I'm not wearing the mask either. So I believe we have a report from Mr. Boyd, so if you would go ahead with that.
Thank you. So it's a pretty lengthy report here. I will kind of skip through some certain sections, but please, if you want further update, once a recommendation on the table, I can walk through anything you'd like to discuss. So I'm just going to jump through the report fairly expedited. So the background to this report, the Village of Anmore supports infill development as a means of creating new residential parcels within the existing developed area. To guide this process, an infill development policy, RLU 16, within the official community plan outlines specific requirements expected from infill projects to ensure alignment with the community objectives. The policy currently has strong language meaning an eligible parcel must meet all 6 requirements outlined in the infill policy. So staff is seeking direction regarding further discussion on whether flexibility should be introduced in how these requirements are applied. So I'll just give you a brief overview of the OCP infill requirements. Number 1, a lot must not have been created through a previous comprehensive development plan. Number 2, be between 3,925 square meters, which is just under an acre, and 8,094 square meters, which is 2 acres. Have an average lot slope of 20% equal to or less than. Can identify a building site that are equal to or less than 20% slope. 5, not require extension or expansion of any village road or water infrastructure. 6, have at least 50 meters of frontage of a public highway and have been in existence for at least 10 years. So, eligible lot size. So the current eligible lot size, as just stated, was 3,925 square meters and 8,094 square meters. However, there are a significant number of parcels that range between these areas, such as 2,800 square meters and 3,925 square meters that could potentially fit the semi-rural character of Anmore, but are ineligible for infill based upon the current policy because of the word must within the policy. So just to give an indication within the report, there's a map identifying a number of parcels which are currently ineligible but would likely meet or be good candidates for an infill policy. Okay, so challenges with the current eligibility regarding parcel slope. The application of the parcel 20% average slope requirement provides a broad protection against densification on these lots. This is hillside lots typically, and may limit any eligibility on lots within the hillside residential designation. The eligible requirements may inadvertently exclude parcels that would otherwise be well suited for responsible infill development. Many properties in Anmore contain a mixture of terrain, where steep sections along with flat sections are more suitable building areas, as in the flat sections are suitable building areas. So a strict cutoff may fail to account for these site-specific variations and could prevent viable development that may otherwise align with the intent of the infill policy. So such cases, an example may be a disqualification of a parcel that exhibits an average slope of slightly greater than 20%, such as 21%. And another example here is frontage on a public highway. The 50-meter road frontage requirement serves as a key control in regulating subdivision potential, ensuring consistent access to public roads. However, this requirement may inadvertently limit infill opportunities on parcels that could otherwise support responsible development. So in some cases, parcels with slightly less than 50 meters of frontage, such as 45 or 80 meters, may still provide sufficient access, sightlines, and servicing potential to support an additional lot. Strict adherence to this requirement may prevent logical and context-sensitive infill development that align with the broader goals of the infill policy. So some potential adjustments the Council may wish to consider. One is removing the average parcel slope eligibility requirements. Rather than evaluating the entire parcel's average slope, a more refined approach could assess only the area designated for development. This shift would allow greater flexibility in determining eligibility while ensuring that steep slope and environmentally sensitive areas remain protected. So a refined slope approach to eligibility is closely aligned with the village's commitment to minimize environmental disturbance by shifting the focus from the entire parcel average slope to the buildable area. Development can be directed towards sections that require the least amount of grading, vegetation removal, and soil disruption. Allowing responsible infill development in suitable areas not only helps preserve the environment, but also promotes the efficient land use within the community. Adjusting the road front requirements, rather than maintain a strict 50-metre road frontage requirement, Council may wish to consider alternative approaches that allow for limited flexibility while still ensuring appropriate access and streetscape consistency. Potential adjustments could be such as minor variances, such as introducing a provision that allows parcels with slightly less than 50 metres of frontage, for example, maybe 40 to 49 metres, be considered for an infill policy, subject to a case-by-case review of access, servicing, and neighbourhood impact. Alternative access considerations allowing shared driveways or panhandle lots in cases where standard frontage requirements cannot be met, provided that access remains safe and functional. Okay, expanding the eligible lot size, as noted previously, there are a number of parcels which, especially when the double fronted roadways, which means there's a roadway on the front of the parcel and the back of the parcel, would actually be likely a good source of subdivision because you're limiting access onto our major highways as well. It's another thought process there. So an important section of this might be of consideration for council is for enhancing environmental protection measures. So if greater flexibility is introduced into slope and frontage requirements, additional safeguards may be needed to ensure responsible development. Possible policy enhancements could include site-specific environmental and geotechnical reviews, steep slope development restrictions, tree and natural area protection. And so with those areas, we would enhance and protect the environmental conditions of existing parcels. So in conclusion, implementing a more flexible interpretation of the infill development eligibility guide by specific evaluations would provide a more nuanced and balanced approach to development approvals, while the current policy ensures a rigid process. Recent inquiries and application indicate that strict adherence to certain eligible criteria, such as parcel slope, frontage, and lot size, may inadvertently limit responsible infill development opportunities that align with the broader intent of the infill policy. I'll just put the recommendation tonight for this report is that the report dated May 14th, 2025, entitled Infill Policy RLU 16, Review from Manager of Development Services be received for information, and staff be directed to amend the OCP Infill Policy RLU 16 for council consideration.
Before I ask for a motion and a seconder, I'm wondering if I can ask a process question. Yep. I have extensive notes myself. I'm not sure what my colleagues have, but the second part of that recommendation that says direct staff to amend the OCP policy, is that inferring to amend it as written here, or is there an opportunity for us to amend the recommended amendment?
Do you take that?
Through the chair, if the motion is put forward on the floor, then council may debate the motion, which may include making amendments to the motion to include or exclude specific criteria.
Perfect. So with that said, can I get a motion? Thank you. And a seconder? That was lucky. Now I'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Webering.
Okay. So I have a few questions. So in the case of a 2,800 square meter lot that would be split into two, what would the density per acre be in a situation like that when we allow basement suites, carriage houses on? What would we end up with two lots?
You would likely end up with two lots which were aleligible for a main unit and a secondary unit.
Okay, so no carriage house because
it's
of the
unlikely because of the size of the lot that would be created, so you're unlikely to be eligible to have the coach house, secondary suite, and the main house, but it become a technical question per lot.
Okay, and the minimum lot size is 1/3 of an acre?
Yes.
So that would be third of an acre?
Just over, yeah, you could parcel off 1/3 of an acre and have slightly bigger than a third.
Okay, so you could have 2/3 of an acres.
1/3 of an acre
plus-
is roughly off the top of my 1395, I think it is off the top of my head. roughly.
Okay, so it doesn't really exceed our current density. Okay. So I have a question about the lots that are outlined in blue on that map.
Yep.
Okay, so I see 2 on Leggett. I assume those 2 are less than 50-meter frontages?
I think my colleague Josh here put this map parcel together. The ones within blue, I think they're just showing that they're actually less than 1 acre.
Okay, so then my main question is, the ones that front East Road and Leggett,
Yep.
wouldn't they exceed 50 meters when you add them together?
Yes, they would. So this one's about size of lot, not frontage of lot. The ones which are highlighted here. So they would not be eligible currently under our infill policy because they are smaller than the 0.97 acres.
Oh, I see.
But
Okay.
however, when you look at it from a contextual perspective, there'll likely be good
I
candidates
see
for
what you're
infill
saying.
because you have frontage on East Road and on Leggett.
Right.
And the flat lots, all those kind of things.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because that always kind of made sense to me, and that did come up when we were discussing this whole infill policy way back when. So that's answered that. You explained the second paragraph on page 105 regarding the slope. I think that makes sense. I don't fully understand the mechanics of that.
Yeah, so I can kind of give you, I'll try and paint a picture in your head. You could have a lot that, say, is very flat on one half,
Yeah.
and then you could have a ravine at the back of it, which is, say, 90% slope. That lot would no longer be eligible because when you do the average, it's over the 20%. But in reality, you're never going to touch that really steep slope at the back of the lot.
Right.
Because it's environmentally sensitive, it's difficult, you wouldn't touch that lot. So
It's going to be green space regardless.
Say that again, sorry?
It's going to be green space regardless.
Yes, exactly. So you've discounted a lot that perhaps would be good eligible because it's a flat piece on the front.
Okay.
However, it's a council decision on if you want to move forward on those kind of things.
Okay.
And again, every infill lot would come through a rezoning process as well. So council would always have the power to deny if they felt that it didn't meet the requirements of the OCP.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, just sort of a statement. When we discussed this whole infill, it was a very broad sort of rules. And the main thing, and Councillor Trowbridge may back me up, was to maintain the look and the feel of the neighborhoods. We didn't want to shock anybody in Anmore proper. Everybody seems to cherish this. So I think if that's maintained, I'm interested in hearing, all these recommendations in an actual policy, so.
Yeah, so the staff's, the problem for staff, I would say, is the word must within the policy. It's very black and white, the word must.
Right.
There's no kind of wiggle room towards that. Even though we believe it's very contextually a good idea for infill, it doesn't meet the
Yeah,
intent of
because
the
every
policy.
lot is unique.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, so the double frontage, people are typically cutting off a 1/3 acre anyway. So if you do double frontage and you get 2.4 acre lots on separate roads, the look and feel of the neighborhood does not change at all. And that's actually one of the better infill things, so I'm full support of that. The slope thing, I asked a few people on that, what is the average slope and how is it determined? And I could not get an answer, whether it's 1 meter spacing or 3 meter spacing, and if you had a thing that looked like a W, is that 0 or is that all absolute values so it's steep? So yes, if you can build a lot or house on a specific area and there's enough space to do so, I think that should be restricted. However, if it's a 20% solid slope, we want to be off the steep slope, so probably not. The panhandle one is interesting to me. I would raise that before. I think the concerns were access for the fire department, but there is a way that we're doing carriage houses back there anyway, so I struggle to see the difference from a panhandle for the carriage house or a panhandle in a separate lot, but mostly from firefighting. There is a look and feel thing that comes into play. I think it was quite against with the original infill requirements. And I'm a little concerned about creeping requirements. So we said it was 50, it's 50. And then we'll go, it's 49. And then we'll go 47. And somebody will go, look, I'm 46.5. So I don't know when you start doing that, like where the creeping stops. So it's a hard thing to put into bylaw because then everybody comes up and says, look, I'm only a meter, I'm only a centimeter. If there is a way to take the must out and we get to negotiate something further on that, 0.1 of a meter or whatever it happens to be, I'm okay with it. Just for information, I was mucked over for 0.002 of an acre once, and I did not appreciate the rigidness of that at the time. So as long as there's something in the give and take, right? I don't want to just keep, so we got 1/10 of an acre infills, right? So as you go down.
Yeah, my response to that would be, as staff, we're always trying to follow the intent of the policy, that, like you said, the look and feel. Like if something comes to us and it, strong language, is blatantly against what the policy is, we would never bring it towards council because you don't meet any of these requirements. But the intent, sometimes we've got to question the intent. What was the intent of the 50 meters? Was it just to be rigid and to cut people off? That's okay, that's council's decision. Or was it about a look and feel? Was it about safety of sight lines on a roadway? What was the intent? So for us as staff, we can then, if someone comes in and it's, like you said, it's 46.5, and the intent is it must be 50, that's okay. We can say the intent is it must be 50, or was the intent to create safe access onto a roadway, or some of those things, because it provides us with wiggle room, as you kind of put it, to say, okay, this makes contextual sense, we can put this to council and let council make the final decision on this if they feel this meets the intent or not.
So is every infill lot recorded differently? For example, if it was a 46-meter frontage, and for safety reasons, we said, okay, you can do it, but you must remove, the setback is no longer 5, the setback is now 12.
No, we have a standardized zone for infill.
Oh, we do, okay.
Yeah. However, again, it's council's decision on how you wish to zone. You could create a zone for every infill. As staff, I would caution you against that, because you would end up with multiple zones which look and feel slightly different.
So just one quick comment before I ask my questions. On page 103, item 7, the existence have been at least 10 years.
It's 5.
I thought we had amended that to 5.
We have. As soon as I read it, I realized we amended it to 5.
Okay. On page 106, it says, speaking about steep slopes, less than 20% on average. Should that not be equal to or greater than 20% in that case? Yeah, okay. So first of all, I'm in favor, in general terms, of looking at this to make adjustments. I think Councillor Weverink and I were the task force that created Infill, and it has evolved since we created it, and that really was the intent. So I'm not the least bit opposed to continuing the evolution, but I would like to know an approximation, not an just pure estimate. If we move down this path with some of these alterations, how many lots does that now put in the realm of acceptable? And I'm not looking for an answer here. I'm, just,
I'm glad because I don't have the answer for you
yeah,
tonight.
no, and I wouldn't expect you to.
Yeah.
But I think that would be something relevant. I'm also not a huge fan of increasing case-by-case approvals. So I'm sort of torn with some of this, in that even though I think there needs to be wiggle room, as you put it, and I agree with that, I think we need to be as prescriptive as possible in the areas that make sense, so that rules themselves tend to make the decision versus everything being referred to staff or council having to act as judge and jury, because it opens us up to individuals not seeing the difference between their case and the case down the street, and assuming that we're giving preferential treatment. And I really don't want to see us go down that path if we can avoid it. So, for example, when we talk about slope average, that makes no sense to me. For exactly what you said, you have a flat bench and an 80-degree slope, but there's plenty of building envelope. We should let them build. So, maybe what we do is remove the site average altogether and have different language so that there's now 6 points, for example. Simplify things. In terms of, and I think it was Councillor Richardson that talked about creep, that's one of my issues as well. Like right now, an acre to 2 acres is actually 0.97, and that is a built-in creep for that very reason. If that becomes 267, I don't know what the logic for that is. Why is that a magic number? I get that it's 2,800 square meters, but I think that needs a little more thought and discussion. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm in favor of altering what we currently have. I'm not currently in favor of every single item as proposed. And I would like to add to that sort of a stiffening up of the prescriptive part of it, just to make logistics easier, and also getting an estimate of how many lots would now be included. That's what I would recommend.
Noted.
I agree with what I've heard. I do want a certain amount of flexibility, and it's funny, I mean, I think about some of the panhandle lots, and I know one of the reasons it was a problem is because we would have had to add to village infrastructure. But there's so many panhandle lots that are so infillable, like there's just a big empty piece of land and it would just look so good with a house there. So I'm certainly open to creative ways to kind of maybe make those happen, especially if it adds to the look and feel of the neighborhood, like some consistency. So I'm certainly open to ideas and some creative ideas about how we deal with some of our kind of rigid rules, which we put in place for good reason. I mean, those end up becoming cost prohibitive to the village, and that wasn't the intent. So, but I'm open to different ideas.
That reminded me of my last point that I couldn't see because my glasses weren't on. If we're contemplating panhandles or anything like that, I think there should be a consultation. I don't mean arduous, but a consultation with Chief Sharp, just to make sure that we're not doing anything potentially unsafe. He knows the turning radius of his equipment. He knows all that. I don't keep that data in my mind, so even if it came to council for a decision, we'd have to ask him anyway.
Yeah, so one of the ways staff could address such a comment as that would be something along the lines of, if a panhandle lot came to us, the proponent would need to identify how the fire truck would actually turn around on that property. Sufficient turning movements need to be provided to allow this lot to continue. So we'd have to have that and bring it to council to say, we have identified how this would be done as through the rezoning process. And if they can't do it, then it doesn't meet the intent and you'd squash it.
Okay. Are there any further? No. Councillor Richardson?
Yeah, I'm contemplating the reduced lot size. So I don't know how they feel, but as I said, if you got Leggett and you got East Road and it's 0.8 of an acre, chopped right in the middle, 0.4, 0.4, it's a separate thing, and many of the houses there, well, not many, there's 10 or whatever, are built in such a way that they're on the front of the lot or the back of the lot. So I think that's doable and makes sense. I'm worried that, if we say 0.66, right? Because you say, okay, it's always got to be a minimum of a third. Okay, does that mean that somebody who has now 1 acre can get 3 lots? Right? They subdivide through infill, a third of it off once, and then they subdivided the 0.66 later into 2 1/3. So that has to be discussed, but there's an aspect of me that says if the minimum lot size is a third of an acre, it's a third of an acre as long as the look of the field goes okay. Because right now, it was supposed to be half an acre, so a 1.5 acre could go into 3 half acres every 5 years. But, you know, so that has to be mushed around a little bit, and with the number of lots that are potential, like if it's 1 or 2 lots we're talking about, it's different than if there's 50 or 60, right? So.
Yeah. Maybe it would be helpful as part of the analysis when staff bring this back, in terms of the double frontage. If there was a double frontage, we'll allow a decrease of less than an acre. You know, we can bring back policy such as that, so we can identify this is the circumstance we would allow this, so we can help kind of provide some prescriptive narrative over it.
Yeah, I think what you're hearing is that everybody is wide open to it, but want to make sure we bring some logic to it, because just going back in history when Councillor Weverink and I did the task force, there was a lot of volatility around this to begin with, and it was very rigid. People said no less than this, no less than that. So things have to evolve, things have to change, but let's make sure that there's the level of research in it that we can. So I'll ask again about process. Do I need an amended motion, or can we pass the motion as it is, knowing that our input's been provided to staff?
I would suggest that the amendments be included in the motion, so I can read my list and council can let me know if I'm accurately reflecting that. So the motion is currently to direction to amend the OCP infill policy. So I would suggest that the direction would be for staff to report back regarding options to amend the OCP infill policy and include criteria such as double frontage and aspect of how the lot is going to be subdivided, whether it would be front to back or side by side, and how that can impact the minimum requirements, how many lots would be eligible approximately for infill with changes implemented, avoiding as much as possible what measures could be put in place to avoid multiple discretionary case-by-case approval scenarios, reporting back on ways to address the slight slope average and appropriate bench building areas, and measures regarding panhandle in terms of either consultation with Chief Sharp or addressing through rezoning, the trucks being able to turn. And
I just add last one, to remove the word must within the policy. Because the word must currently is very prescriptive.
Right, but is that something, there may be an element of the 6 or 7 items that needs to have a must in it. So I wouldn't be in favor at this juncture of removing must from everything until we see what comes back. And at that point, maybe that's appropriate. That's how I feel anyway.
Okay.
I don't want to influence.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it says right in the resolution for council consideration, so whatever's coming back, we're going to get to debate again. So
Valid point.
I don't think there's any danger in modifying anything.
So with the longest motion in history, if there's nothing else, nothing else? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Good report. Should we let the others back in? It's going quite smoothly. Do we need them? Oh, sorry. Sorry about that motion, Karen. How many pages?
you do? You okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, good.
I wasn't sure we could take it back. Hey, you've got your mics on.
Okay, so we'll move on to 11C, Council Mail and Correspondence Policy, a report dated May 16th, 2025. Our Manager of Corporate Services is attached. Ms. Essen.
Thank you, through the chair. As you know, staff is undertaking a review of all Anmore policies and trying to divide the council policies and administrative policies, just a regular overall cleanup as much as we can. And the end goal is to post the relevant policies on the website for residents to be able to view them. That's currently in the works. So we presented the results of the first phase in the previous meeting, and Council passed a resolution to rescind a number of policies. As part of this continuing review, staff created a new Council mail and correspondence policy to meet the current needs of Mayor and Council. So this new policy is limited to the correspondence intended for Mayor and Council, as all other correspondence received by the village are actioned as per the established administrative practices and falls under the authority of the CAO. Therefore, we prepared a new policy following the recently adopted policy number 81, Council Policy Development and Maintenance Policy, and policy number 44 is out of date, and operational practices and council practices are not adequately identified and separated. So as you can see, the draft policy is in attachment 1, and staff is recommending the attachment 3 policy number 44 to be rescinded.
Good. So the recommendation option is that policy number 44, municipal correspondence policy, be rescinded, and that policy number 80, council mail and correspondence policy, be adopted. Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? See none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to 11D, additional resource request, report dated May 16th, 2025, from our Chief Administrative Officer is attached. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So this report is before Council this evening to seek some additional funding resources related to corporate office support, more specifically related to freedom of information and protection of privacy requests. So as a public body, one of the responsibilities of the village is to have a duty to assist in terms of folks that are seeking information through freedom of information requests. We have in the last 6 years had anywhere from 2 to 4 and last year up to 10 requests per year. Over that 6-year time period, mostly the time spent on these requests is unrecoverable in terms of fees. There are certain criteria in which we can recover, mostly related to A, commercial applicants, and B, amount of time required to process the request. So in the previous 6 years to this year, we had 2 requests, one in 2021 and one in 2022 that required fee estimates. So far this year, up until April 2025, we've had 7 requests, which is trending high for us. And currently 4 of those requests are exceedingly complex in that they will require quite a bit of staff time. Our time estimates currently for the requests that we are undertaking at this time is that it would take 1 full-time equivalent person to 6 weeks to process the requests that we have. As you know, we are a small but mighty team. However, we are beyond capacity to process this request. So the request this evening is that funding for additional corporate office-related support of up to $20,000 be approved to be funded from unrestricted operating surplus for the balance of 2025, and Council staff would come before council at the end of the year should we see that those needs continue, and would be including that in the future budget, operating budget if needed.
Good. Could I get someone to move the recommendation? Moved, seconded, and just to add to, there is a time limit as well on some of these that have to, for urgency as well. So I
Correct.
think that's a bit, I'm going to ask, is 20,000 enough in regards to what's currently, or you could come to council at a subsequent meeting?
I think currently with what we have on our docket, I think 20,000 should be enough. However, if we do continue throughout the year to trend as we have, then staff will likely be back in front of council seeking additional funds.
Good. Any comments? No? No? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Sauer. Mayor's report. May 10th, me and a few of my fellow councillors, we attended the POCO May Days in a rainy morning for the first time in quite so many years. Then came up here and attended the community fair at the Anmore Hub, which was a very big success and great to see so many people. Just wanted to announce as well, it is National Public Works Week. Just want to extend a big thank you to our amazing Public Works team that keeps the village in such good shape and is there at a moment's notice when things go bad to be able to help us out. Also wanted just to comment an incredible thank you to all the members, volunteers of the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department who did an amazing job in containing the fire on May 10th down in Countryside. Amazing job. I believe there was 22 volunteers when I got there at about 5 in the morning, helping put out a very, very challenging fire that started in that. But a big thank you to an amazing team. So, councillors' reports. Councillors' reports. No, nothing. Okay. Chief Administrative Officer's report.
Thank you. So tax notices were mailed out last week, and I'm hearing that they are arriving in the mail as we speak. Hopefully, folks get them before the possible postal strike. So please look for your tax notices. If you do not receive one and there is a Canada Post strike, please reach out to the village and we can get a copy of your tax notice over to you. I would also remind folks that mail will likely be on hold. If there is a strike and penalties do apply per our bylaw, whether the tax your payment is received or not. So there are several other options to make your tax payments. So please take advantage of that. Again, echoing National Public Works Week, thanks to our great crew out there. And we will likely be coming out this week with the winning name for our Name the Truck contest. So we got several great submissions for that. So thanks to everybody who participated in that. And also we will be continuing on with our engagement activities in the near future related to the Spirit Park and surrounding area. So look for that. Thank you.
Good, thanks. Got some general correspondence, City of Enderby regarding Bill 7, 2025, a letter dated from the Village of Telqua regarding Pacific Northern Gas, Metro Vancouver Board and Brief. I'm going to move on to public question period, but before I start public question period, I just will let everybody know we received, council received a legal letter regarding, which reinforces that we will be not discussing anything regarding Anmore South at any of the public question period at the advice of our attorney. So open up for public question period for anything else. And we have, I think, 15 minutes. Yeah.
Name and address for the question period? Do you want the name and address of the questioner?
Please, yeah.
Okay.
For the record.
Hello, everybody. Will Crocker, 2045 Leggett Drive, Anmore. Mayor, Council, I had previously asked some questions that I had received some answers that are either still unanswered or insufficient. And so I'd like to, I'm going to move this, I'd like to ask these. John, I previously asked about the OCP bylaw. It is to be reviewed every 5 years. It is a bylaw. And I'd like to ask, when is this council going to make forward a motion to have the OCP reviewed and update what the community wants in the official community plan? I think that's been asked numerous times, and I think we deserve an answer.
Mr. Joseph, you wanted to, about the OCP?
Yeah, I guess to the chair, just for your question, for the update to the OCP, there's nothing explicitly required for a 5-year update. There are update requirements for housing needs reports, as well as Bill 44 requirements as well, and regional context statement updates, which are due at the end of the year.
And I believe with the Anmore OCP, it's actually to be reviewed with the community every 5
I'm
years.
sorry.
The Anmore OCP is to be reviewed every 5 years. It's a part of the bylaw, and that is part of the bylaw that was created when the OCP was created. So unless you've created changes to the OCP without consulting the village, I think the village would like to know, people would like to know when we're going to have community involvement and have an OCP review.
Thanks.
Okay. So would you care to answer that, John? Since
I think he's already answered it.
Yeah, you are the mayor, and you should know the answer to this.
And he's the planner, sorry. I can tell you that we have put a couple $100,000 in a budget line item for it, so.
We should have that in the budget. We've been paying for capital improvements for a number of years now. Okay, another question I'd asked previously, this goes back several months. I had asked if we would be invoking a referendum on the Anmore South question.
We're not going to be answering that.
And I'm talking about a referendum question. And so the answer you gave me at the time was we only use referendum for financial questions. And I took a look back at Anmore's history, and I noted that that wasn't the case. Anmore actually was created based on a referendum. I think if you recall your history, that was a question of we were going to join Port Moody or not, and the referendum question was to become Anmore. Previously in 2008, John, I think you'd mentioned we had a referendum about borrowing money. And I noticed that from Civic Info BC, other communities actually had referendum questions that were not financially related. And if we take a look, I believe it was 2003, we had a referendum question if Anmore should go to half acre or not. So I think we have precedents for referendum questions. I think when you look at major changes to Anmore, whether it is Anmore South.
We're just out of time, so.
And my question's not finished, and I'll finish my question.
Thanks.
So I think we should take a look at the precedents. We have a large question that will affect Anmore for eternity, and I don't believe that this council is taking that seriously and using the proper tools. So I'd like to have an answer as to why we haven't put forward a
I
referendum.
will not be answering on the advice of our attorney. So, thank you.
And then would you be maybe stepping down as mayor if you're unable to answer those questions, John?
I already have answered you. Thank you.
That's a non-answer, John.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Do you need name? Lisa Johnston,
Name.
180 Hemlock.
Yeah, thank you.
The fees that you requested of $20,000 or $25,000 for the additional staff, can you clarify, is that for overtime or is that for hiring an additional staff member?
I don't have an answer this time.
So you're seeking an additional, $20,000. What is that for?
For more help to be able to answer these.
So that's what I mean. Is it an additional staff person to be
I'm-
hired, or is it for overtime?
I'm not certain of that, so.
How does the number come up?
I don't know what to say. We just council has just approved a budget line item, so I don't know how we don't get into the job of how it's being distributed.
Okay, Ms. Elric, put that number forward, though. How did you come up with that? What's it for?
Yeah, I would suggest maybe send an email. I don't know. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, who do I send the email to?
Ms. Elric. Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they don't know if they're bringing somebody in or, yeah. Hi.
Hi, Leslie Hannigan, 1065 Thompson Road. Three of us met with Rick Glumack, our MLA, last Friday, and apparently we had a talk with him about us speaking about what we're not supposed to talk about. And apparently he sent a letter to you and the council offering to clarify the role of the provincial legislation and assistance in how to engage with the residents. And I'm wondering if you are going to take him up on that.
We will respond to his letter
And in what way?
with writing a letter back to him.
Well, I get that, but will you be accepting his offer to have him explain the provincial legislation?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've received the letter. I think we received it yesterday.
Yeah, so will you take him up on that offer?
We'll be responding to his letter, yeah.
We never get answers. Okay, so regardless, Anmore have your say is taking a really long time to answer, and we're having a time crunch here. So I realize you're busy, but it's not our fault. Like, we need answers to these things. We've offered or asked to meet with one of the councillors, and the answer back was that they don't respond to Anmore South, whatever, or they didn't have, I don't know what the answer was, but it wasn't clear. We're not getting answers, and that's...
Oh.
Sorry, Polly?
Sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah,
Councillor
sorry,
Cryer.
Polly, did I misread that?
totally misspoke
Okay.
it. The answer is because of exactly what Mayor McEwen just said. We have been advised by our attorneys not to speak on Anmore South.
All right,
It's very black and white.
In the response in the email, it said nothing about the attorney or legal requirements. It just said you won't, so we just thought that, I mean, how were we to know that?
Well, that just became relevant this afternoon.
Pardon?
That just became relevant this afternoon because we received the letter on Friday. Our attorney got to us this afternoon because of the long weekend.
Right, it's just I'm saying that we didn't understand that because it wasn't written. It wasn't, So can Anmore have your say, be responding a bit quicker to some of our questions? Because we don't know where to turn here.
Yeah, yeah, that's what part of the extra money will be probably used to as well. So
Is that going to be done immediately then? Because...
I'm going to have to look into that, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll come back up on this one then. Okay.
Can is there anybody else that wants to come up first, please? Yeah.
Don't touch. Don't touch. Nancy Maloney again, 1724 East Road for the past 30 years. And I had two questions. One is a follow-up question to my input at the beginning of the meeting. So given that it is quite correct that previously approved minutes...
Ms. Maloney, I'm going to cut you off. You've asked this question the last 3 meetings. You've been given an answer. I recognize that you aren't in agreement with the answer, but the answer has not changed and it has been given. So if you could move on to your next question, please.
So Mayor McEwen, are you saying those minutes will not be corrected even with the new information?
The minutes have been posted as they were. So please move on to your next question.
Okay, so is it correct that what the Metro Board has done is not correct?
We're not here to talk about the Metro Board at this point. You've asked this question 3 times, so could you please move on to your next question?
Okay, would you acknowledge that I provided new information?
The minutes have been posted, and they were approved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Does
Thank
it
you.
not bother you that the official record has false information?
I'm simply going to repeat what we've had before. You've asked this question 3 times, so could you please move on to your next question?
Okay, question number 2. Okay, lastly, I wondered how the Anmore's draft accessibility plan is proceeding, and I did do some research since the last time I asked about this, and actually the province mandated compliance as of September 1st, 2023, which is now nearly 2 years ago. So in my recent research, I did find a document developing your first accessibility plan, a guide, and wondered if the village is using that document and that I can provide you with a link to it if that's not available. So the guide to planning, the accessibility plan, which was to be completed by September 1st, 2023 initially.
We do have the guide.
You have the guide?
And we are working towards, and as you know, the committees, we just put out for calls for nominations, so we hope to have news on that soon. And
Okay.
also, as I mentioned before, we are in compliance. We've spoken with someone with the Accessibility Board, and we are in compliance because we're still trying to fill the position. We're obviously a small village, and we have to do the best we can with the people that apply.
Sorry, which position is this?
A position of someone on the CC committee who meets the accessibility requirements.
My memory was that that is exempted if there is no such person who comes forward to be on the committee, that it's not a requirement that there be such a committee member, was what was said previously, that that recommendation, that committee membership includes someone with that concern. Were there no such person, is what was said previously, then that requirement did not have to be implemented. Like, what I'm saying here is you don't have to have such a person on the committee to proceed. At least that was what was said previously.
Good.
Okay,
I don't know
thank you.
what other people remember.
Maybe we can follow up then through an email.
Follow up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Mhm.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Don't touch.
Or be gentle.
Jurgen Durkton, 1815A East Road. Is taxpayer money going to our bylaw officer to trespass on private property in order to collect posted signs without property owner's consent? And should Anmore residents, those who are concerned, not turn this matter over to the police?
I have no idea what you're talking about, so Ms. Elric, do you have any?
That has not occurred, and I don't have any further comment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Also, I want to refer to the infamous Anmore procedure. I'm going to have to move this. This is crazy. The Anmore procedure bylaw, Article 64B. The charter states everyone, hang on. Does it not trump the charter rights and freedoms, namely the right of free expression?
I don't know what you're referring to.
Well,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
The charter actually states, quote, everyone has the right of the following fundamental freedoms: freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. End quote. Why does this appear not to be the case here in Anmore? And the other question is, I'm quite frankly confused, and I don't have time, but I would like you to clarify how item 64B was not included in the original committee of the whole meeting.
I think Ms. Elric explained that it was actually a request of council, that it wasn't to be included in the initial draft. Is that correct?
Thank you. Yes, as I indicated before in answer to Councillor Richardson, it was not included in the original report in April because the staff in October, because the staff recommendation in the report to the Committee of the Whole in October was to recommend to remove question and public input periods. and other direction was provided by council at that time.
Okay. We have a few more questions to ask, and then we're going to be adjourning. So
I can't even hear you. Sorry.
we're at our time.
Okay, thank
Just a couple more. I think Ms. Johnson wanted to get back up and ask a question. Or
My name is Trudy Schneider, 2318 Sunnyside Road. I was just wondering where you got the figure about 50 acres have already been cleared in Anmore South. You mentioned that during your CKNW interview.
yeah, it was, when Imperial Oil first proposed the land and put it up for sale, they said a third of it had been cleared and remediation was done there and taken all the lead from the rifle range that was down there.
And Imperial Oil calls it 50 acres?
They said about a third of the parcel, and the parcel's about 150. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Or okay, 2 more questions. Okay, and then we're going to adjourn.
It's Leslie Hannigan again. So when Anmore sent a letter to Belcarra, and Belcarra responded with questions about the development, but I'm not supposed to say the development.
We won't be commenting at all
You
on
can't.
anything to do with no, under our advice. Thanks.
How can I can't find out an answer from anyone, even one-on-one or anything about it?
You could reach out to staff, I would suggest, yeah. I'll follow up with the Have Your Say Anmore to see what the delay is on it and stuff,
Okay.
so.
So I can ask it on Have Your Say, or I can reach out, but I can't ask it in public.
We cannot comment.
In public, that's the discretion part?
I'm just repeating, we can't public. No. Or private, yeah. Yeah, we can't respond, so.
So you can't respond in any manner? All right.
Thanks.
Deb Buick, 1100 Thompson Road. My understanding is mayor and council are here to represent the residents of their municipality or community. I'm just wondering, why did you run? We're not getting answers. We can't ask questions. So I just want to know why some of you ran for council.
Well, I think if a number of them didn't run, we wouldn't have a council. So there you go. Thanks.
Good evening. Jason Littman, number 5 Alder Way. I'm just wondering how we got to the point where we're not allowed to discuss what's going on in our community, especially an incredibly important decision.
It's on advice of our attorneys.
Okay, with that in mind, then, is it safe to assume that any decisions to do with Anmore South will be put on hold until we're allowed to discuss this?
We'll be having, if things move forward, there'll be opportunity for public to provide comments on each step along the way.
So to be clear, we can't discuss this, but you guys can make a decision without us having the ability to discuss it with you.
You'll be able to provide comments. Pardon me? At the public hearing, yeah.
And is that before or after the decision's made?
Before.
And when's that, sorry?
We aren't sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, this will be the last one, then we're going to adjourn. Go ahead.
Sandy
please.
DeShatson, 1015 Magnolia Way. Council informed us a few weeks ago that the public informed the public that the referendum was only for financial matters and not for land use. I've done my research, and that's incorrect. It's mandatory for certain matters, but it's optional for other matters. I've also found out that in 2002, a referendum was conducted under Hal Weinberg as mayor regarding RS1. The mayor decided to be bound by the result of the referendum. Why can't this council organize a referendum regarding the contentious matter at hand? Let's say the elephant in the room.
Thank you for your question, but we won't be responding. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. So motion. We're going to.
You actually said that you were going to give me another chance.
Okay.
So I just want to come back to the legal matter that you said you're not allowed to speak to under legal advice. Do you have a timeline roughly that you are no longer allowed to speak to us regarding Anmore South? Has legal given you a timeline?
We're having a meeting later on in the week.
Okay.
Thanks.
And a follow-up to the gentleman's question, how did we get here? We're here right now because you're following your legal advice, but can you go back a little bit farther and think about how we got to the point where you received a legal notification? Why are we here? Why are all these people not being answered? Why are we at this place? It doesn't feel good for anybody.
Thank you.
You all have to know that.
Thanks. Okay, motion to adjourn. Move second. All those in favor?
Question?
Carried
Question.
unanimously. We're adjourned. Thanks.